not a lot of light in this place. I don't really like this light because it's like creepy, right? It's a creepy light. So, how's everyone doing? How's everyone doing on our book? What does everyone think? We've read up to part 1 at this point. Super interesting. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I was behind in my reading today, so I had to do a lot of catch up. So a lot of my research is very fresh. Recently done. And my... That seems better. All right, hold on. This book is awesome. It's so good. I like this book better than Slaughterhouse 5. Okay, cool. Love it so far. It's cool right now, so couldn't finish. All good. We'll talk about what you've read up to. Andrea, same. I started today and finished it now. Oh, cool. Love the book. Couldn't find the book in Israel. I am sorry that you couldn't find the book in Israel. I think I tweeted a couple of PDFs and stuff. You've read the whole book already. Wow. Okay, cool. Amazing book. Amazing book. Finished it. So what do people think so far? Like, give me some thoughts. What do you think of our main character, Scout? What do you think of her dad, Atticus? What do you think of her brother, Jem? What do you guys think of Dill? Love the book. Love the book. It's good. You've read the book 4 times. Wow. That must be interesting. Your group of brothers who can relate Scout to... something in my mouth. Ugh. So, I think Atticus is amazing. I think he's just... There's this air about everything that's described to him is the way he works with his temper and how we don't really know a lot about him other than the fact that he's her father and comes in with all of these very important, very smart, very important, very smart, very grounded. And I think his integrity is spot on, as you can see when, one of my favorite lines is when he says, if I didn't defend this man, I wouldn't be able to walk around town. I wouldn't be able to hold my head up in town. I don't know if Kat will make it, hopefully. I think she's working today. I'm actually in New York City right now, if you guys are curious. I got to take a few days off, so I came to see some friends and take care of some things, some meetings and whatnot. What are we talking about? We're talking about To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Now, let's talk a little bit about the history of this book. This book was published in 1960. Does anyone know who was president in 1960? Who became president in 1960? Oh my God. Sorry. Atticus is a wise man, yes. But okay, as you guys know, in 1960, the civil rights movement was really starting to gain speed. That was when it was really becoming a thing in the early 60s. Harper Lee wrote this book when John F. Kennedy had just become president. I don't know if he'd been, actually, I don't know if he was actually inaugurated at this point. Published July, no, he was not. He was not inaugurated until November. So, at this time, John F. Kennedy still wasn't president. So, this was really before the civil rights movement where it happened, which really gained a lot of speed. So, sorry, I cannot pronounce your handle, but we need to know about the history of when this book was written and to the time in which Harper Lee was talking about, the 1930s. It was not Kennedy. It was the president before Kennedy, which it's weird. I can only trace to Kennedy. Eisenhower. It was Eisenhower. No, Nixon lost to Kennedy in the 1960 election, which was the first televised debate. And then Nixon went on to win, I think, in the 70s. Let me keep reading questions. Oh, I'm scrolling all the way to the bottom. Sorry, guys. So, you're right. At this time, they were having that, but Dwight D. Eisenhower was still president. So this was really before the civil rights movement really gained speed. So, at the time this book was written, Harper Lee was talking about a lot of things that were very important to the country, whether or not they had been completely publicly talked about in the way they were going to be in the next few years. Harper Lee wrote this book, and it's set in the 1930s, which was the time of the Great Depression. She has not passed away. She recently, maybe she did, and I don't think she did, because she recently wrote a book. Sorry, I don't know that right off the top of my head, guys. I'm going to be more prepared next time. Yes, she did. Harper Lee passed away last year in February, which is very upsetting. She died when she was born. That's interesting. One more interesting thing while I'm looking at her biography and stuff. Did you know that she was friends with the writer Truman Capote? Like, she was really close friends with him to the point where the character Dill, who I actually love, I love that character Dill. We're going to go back to the beginning of the book to start talking about him and everything in a second. But she actually based the character Dill, she based kind of off of Truman Capote, which I thought was super cool. Right? Like, she did pass away. Thank you, Sally. So, the time she wrote this book, the country was very poor. And she was writing specifically but she drew from themes that she knew how to talk about. Specifically, small town in Alabama. She's from Monroeville, and although in our book is set in Maycomb. She was talking about Southern society, how she perceived it as a young girl growing up. She was talking about the different relations with, in regards to race, which we can obviously see start to become more prevalent as we start to finish the end of part 1 in the book. And she was also just talking about what it was like to be a girl at the time, which I think was super interesting, especially a girl wearing overalls. Have I seen My Cousin Vinny? Yes, I have. Love that movie. So far I have to say, for me, I'm enjoying this book, but I'm not loving it. I don't know why yet. There's something about it. I think it's super interesting, and I'm loving all of these characters, but I'm curious as to where the story, like the story's going, right? I'm like, okay, so I know what's happening. Like, Atticus is now representing and is the attorney for Tom Robinson, a black man from the town of Maycomb that is accused of some crime, which, as of yet, we haven't really found out what the crime was. We just know that he's defending this man. And we know that the town doesn't seem to be very happy with it. That's the end of this book. Yeah, Brianna J., I hope it does. It's starting to draw me in. I'm starting to get very excited about it, but I want to know what's going to happen because I love every person that they've brought in so far. There's a cool theme that I want to talk about. One of the main themes that I think I've noticed, and then I saw in a little bit of my research, and I want to see if you guys thought of any themes that you do, any themes that you know, or noticed. Exactly. Right now we're just seeing things from Scout's point of view, which I think is super cool. I think Scout is super interesting. One, because I think it takes a lot of bravery to grow up at any time and do things that people say you're not supposed to do or be what you're not supposed to be. Scout by no means is fulfilling her role as like the girl she's supposed to be according to that time period in that place. But she's completely comfortable with that. And she's like, yeah, I wear overalls. Yeah, I like to read and write. Yeah, what are you going to do about it? Anytime someone says anything, she stands up for it. And the only time she ever backs down from being who she wants to be or being who she is because Atticus wants her to. Which I thought is super cool. Oh, Ashley213, you're reading this book in class right now? You have to give us a lot of things. Tell me, what are you guys talking about in class? Scout, Jem, and Dilla, the real pair of type. Nicole, yeah, I would say, I guess tomboy's a good word for it. I guess that's a word that, I don't know if that word is still, like, cool being used. But yeah, she definitely has the attributes of someone who sits at the time on, like, on the side of doing things what, like, that boys are supposed to do. And I always think it's interesting. And also, just a quick comment, I think it's going to be cool when, like, hopefully, because of us and our generation, in, like, 30 years, when our kids read this book, or our kids' kids read this book, they'll say, why are they making fun of her for being a girl? That would be cool. And then be like, I don't get why that's bad. And then people be like, well, you have to explain it. Well, at the time, that's something I thought about when I heard it. I was like, that'd be so cool if, like, one day my daughter was reading this and was like, hey, Pop, why do people make fun of her being a girl? She's a girl. Why do they say it's a bad thing? I don't know. I think that'd be super cool if eventually all of that left. Scout defies all of those. Exactly, she does. She defies gender norms, but then she laughs at the idea of Frances wanting to cook. Why? Because she's failing to do the thing that Atticus says she has to do in order to understand people, which is actually one of my favorite quotes in the book. That sometimes to really understand someone, you have to wear their skin and walk around in it for a while. I don't know exactly where that is in the book. I know I have it written somewhere. All right, so let's go to the beginning. So, let's go to the beginning of the book. So we start the book where? I have not seen the movie yet, so no one tell me anything about it. I really like Gregory Peck as an actor. Him and I actually studied in the same acting method. Maybe one day I'll have a live. Yo, Sarah, what's up? Oh my God, I'm gonna call you later, or I'll FaceTime you later or something. I want to check in. But how are you? Oh my God, thank you for joining. So, sorry, back to the book real quick. Any Boo Radley predictions? We'll talk about that in a second. Sarah, we're reading To Kill a Mockingbird. We've read part 1. Right now we're discussing part 1. And we have to read up to chapter 20 by Sunday. I know it's kind of pushing you guys. Maybe we'll make it Monday again. I'm going to think about it today when I keep reading. I miss you too. Did you notice I said mish? Because I was okay. I'm in the city right now. I wish you were here. We could like hang out and go get good food and stuff. But sorry, I'm gonna get back on topic. Okay, I have to say one thing that like I thought was interesting on the first page, which I thought was super cool. Wait, Sarah, I was gonna ask you something. I just thought of it. Okay, I didn't think of it. I slipped my mind. I'll think of it and then ask you. So, on the first page, we start from Scout's point of view, so I already know that Scout's going to be the narrator of this book. She says, when he was nearly 13, my brother Jem, my father this. So we already know Scout's leading this book. But when enough years had gone by to enable us to look back on the incidents that happened, we sometimes discuss the events leading up to this accident. Right? When enough years had gone by to enable us to look back on them. That's an interesting idea. For me, like literally the first page, I was like, that's already interesting. The fact that they were aware that there needed to be time in order for them to really accurately discuss what had happened. But that also makes sense with everything, right? Like, I don't know if you guys have ever been in a breakup or you get in a fight. You can't really talk about it right away. It'll take like months before you're like, oh, remember that one time we fought about that? Oh yeah, that was stupid. I don't know. I thought it was like super cool. Okay, you're right. We haven't figured out the accident yet. That's why I didn't say it. See, I haven't read this yet. This is my first time, Sarah, so I'm very excited. Thank you for stopping by. I will text you soon. Exactly, but that's the thing. So where does this story really start? It doesn't start for a couple pages. It doesn't start till she says, Maycomb was an old town. She's like, I need to give you all of this history. I need to give you how the Finches got where we got and did all this stuff. And then about my dad, so you kind of just have an understanding, and now I'm going to start the story, which I thought was cool. And it's the first time we hear her say I, too, when she starts the story. Maycomb was an old town, but it was a tired old town when I first knew it. Exactly, Rita. Just like in a few years, she knew that she'd find out, reflect, and be like, wait, Atticus wanted me to hear everything. Similar thing, similar theme. Why? Why is that becoming prevalent? That you see that throughout this book, she'll refer to something that happens. She kind of pulls you out of the present storytelling to the future where she is, to be like, it only took me this to realize this. It only took me this to realize this. I think that's saying, like, wisdom is hindsight in 2020. Yes, everyone that's asking me, I am sick. Again, I don't like getting sick. I'm doing my best. I've been taking care of myself. I should be more sick. I've been doing really well. So, we're good. One of the reasons why it's hard for me to... Oh! Can we talk about something real quick? I think she is trying to teach the reader hindsight, Anya. I think that's like something that's interesting, or she's trying to make you aware of it. She's like trying to be like, yo, hindsight is like legit. And there are multiple times in this book where now in hindsight. I also think that maybe it's a thing of being like, oh, no, don't go. I just had a really good idea and it just went. Since you've never read the book, what do you think of the Mockingbird represents? That's a good question. See, but the thing is, I know that hindsight. It's a good point. See, a mockingbird. What is a mockingbird? So they produce beautiful music. They say all these great things about them. They said it's a sin to kill one. See, any suggestion I would make as to what that means as of right now would be only on the themes I know of this book and things I know that it's talking about. Like, I think of race and whatnot, and I think we'll ask that question later. Keep that one, though, for like the next live or the live after that. Because I do have ideas, and I promise you I have them written down so that I know that this was my idea for part one, and then it changed or it didn't. You know what I mean? So, where were we? We weren't even talking about anything yet. I'm sorry, guys. Oh, there's one thing I wanted to talk about. One of my favorite things that I thought was really cool was when we first get introduced to Dill. Right? When we first get introduced to Dill, Dill's whole beginning of respect from Jem comes from his having heard all these stories. Basically having gone to the movies. Especially when Dill says, I love Dracula. I saw Dracula. Thought that was cool. And then Jem says, tell it to us. I thought that was such a badass thing. Because, like, imagine if that's... Remember, movies were very hard to go to and very... they were expensive. And not everyone could go to them in the 30s, especially at that time. That was during the Depression. Money wasn't something around. We found that out. Like, it wasn't around. It was... We found that out when Atticus talked about the Cunninghams. And he taught... And then, Scout taught the rest of the class about the Cunninghams. We found that out immediately. We were like, oh, there's not a lot of money around. So him going to the movies and this happened. Because he got that $5 and then whatever it is, I love the fact that he was like, tell it to us. That's what actors do. That's why I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. Like, that's like the original storytelling method, was just me to you. So for Dill to have to do that now was like super cool. To like be like, I'm gonna tell you this. And then that's how they shared these ideas of movies. Like, he watched it and then told it. Imagine if that's how you saw movies. You knew of them, they were so far away and distant, and then you know that your friend saw one and you're like, yo, tell it to me. Tell me. What was the story? What was it? I think that's super freaking cool. I think it's super cool. All right, let's talk about that. Waiting maiden. A lot of people don't call their father dad. It's really common. I think that's interesting, especially in the South at that time. Now, I don't know if any of you guys are from the South or have lived in the South or visited the South of the United States, but politeness that a sense of formality when speaking to elders and whatnot is very prevalent still to this day. Yes sir, no ma'am type things, which you see in the book. But the fact that these kids can call their father Atticus like that and have this familiarity with him, first name basis, I think only speaks to the respect that he gives them as a father, which you see when him and his uncle or his brother are talking about the kids, and then Scout peeks in and he's like, yeah, well, you can't talk to kids like that. You got to talk to kids like that. He gives them respect. When they ask a question, he gives them an answer. He doesn't give them a show. He's like, kids don't want that. And I think that's... And Mrs. Duval's did mention, she's like, you shouldn't be calling your father Atticus. I think it's super cool because of the fact that he... Because I think it's that respect. Exactly, Nadia. I think it was that he sees a sense of equality with his children, whereas most people see them as just children. And he treats them as such, and when they ask a question, he gives them an answer, even if he doesn't want to. Thank you for joining. Anyone going to sleep now? Oh, wow. A day of wonder and innocence at the first snow, seen by the destruction of the fire as a prelude to come. Thank you, Kat Parker. We're going to talk about that theme right now. That's actually a very prevalent theme in the book, the loss of innocence. And that was it. The fire was like a signifying thing in that loss of innocence. I have a piece that I'll read for you. Thank you for bringing it up. Don't understand me, gente. Where is it? Wait. Hold on, I lost it. Give me a sec. I think it's the exact opposite, what we would normally think. Sometimes calling parents by their real name is thought as disrespectful, but that's not the case in this book. Exactly. I don't think it is. I think it's the utmost showings of respect for Atticus and for his children, you know? I think they are mature. Remember, that was a different time. I don't know. I think kids tend to be more mature than we... I mean, the kids that I've met recently tend to be way more mature than I remember being at that age. Okay, this was it. It was that the fire is pretty much the end of the games they play for Boo Radley and all of this stuff. You know, it's the end of all of that, and you start to see it because after that is when I feel the story shifting more towards the trial. I mean, it starts to get mentioned much more frequently. I'm sorry your feet hurt. Exactly. There's a mutual respect, and I think that's something that's very interesting with the two children is the way they respect their father. Like, and also just the whole idea of respect. Think about it. When did Jem start to show Dill respect? Dill kind of had to like prove himself. Right? But then the next time Dill comes back that summer before the fire, he knows about strip poker and stuff. Right? They get in trouble because they go into the Radley's house. So it's one of those things like Dill is already starting to lose that innocence. Him and Jem start to become more one. And Scout starts to kind of slide off of their pairing. She joins him randomly. Good question. Opinion on Boo Radley? I don't have much of an opinion as of right now. Boo Radley, to me, is just a guy down the street that, I don't know, did you guys ever have that when you were kids? Well, I think one of the things that is interesting is Atticus is always very honest with them. But I'm going to read the question. They see Kat Parker, they see Atticus in a new light after the incident of the dog. That's true because now they know that he has secrets from them that they've never heard that the town might know. But also that he can surprise them and excite them in a way. That, remember, right before that moment, there was a whole few pages of Scout trying to figure out why her father was interesting. Like, what does he do? Why can't he be... Because I think she sees him as the superhero, and she doesn't understand why the town doesn't. So this happens again, and he wants... Boo Radley, I don't know. I know it's definitely him leaving the stuff in the tree until, you know, Mr. Radley went and patched it up. It was definitely him. And then you see, like, the kindness there when he folded the pants for Scout and, like, sewed them up. Or I'm just interested as to, like... don't get it. I don't get it. I don't know what he's doing there. I don't know where it's, because I haven't read past it yet. I'm excited to see what happened. Yeah, he put the blanket on Scout. Because I don't know what's happening. And then I thought that originally going into it, knowing what I knew, I thought the trial was going to say that Boo Radley did it, and they didn't want to, they didn't want to convict Boo Radley of a crime, so they're going to put it on Tom Robinson, but it's actually the Ewells and Tom Robinson, Ewells. I don't know how to say their name, but them. Hold on. Rita, now that makes sense to me. They call him Boo, but there are other ways of making people into a ghost. Making people into a ghost. That's interesting. I've read part 1. I've read up to 11. Boo? I think Boo's definitely real. There's definitely a presence in that. I don't know. Wow. Why wouldn't he be real? Also, they don't use the word ghost, I noticed. They use something else. Boo's misunderstood. Yes, I would definitely agree that I think Boo's definitely misunderstood, and I think a lot of what she was trying to bring light to was of the time. Maybe there was some sort of mental illness, but that's how people just dealt with it. They just made him stay inside and he didn't bother anyone, which is upsetting. And I think it's interesting to see just how much things have progressed since then, how much work there's still to do, but we've still progressed. I think that's interesting. That's a very interesting point. Triforce of Dragons. Love that name. The whole plot, I think, is about showing us how easy it is to judge, either skin color or hearsay, like Boo. That's it. That's very interesting, because immediately kids already have this bad image of Boo, but he's really done nothing but nice things for them. It's just the hearsay that's making them think this. But I think that's commenting on race and the way people feel about race. Like, think about these kids have opinions about people of other races. Why? Because that's what people say. They haven't really met people of other race. They just, I don't know, interesting. They call him a phantom. I don't know. I like to, unless I know for sure I've read somewhere, I like to think that every character is specifically that character, unless there's evidence. I don't think there's evidence that Atticus is Boo Radley. I'm curious as to why Atticus hid the fact that he was a really good shot from them. Why he has this what appears to be this detachment from this old version of himself, or this hesitance with violence, apprehension. He doesn't want. Well, I think he doesn't want Scout fighting for multiple reasons. One, because of his apprehension with violence, and then two, because it's not the ladylike thing to do at the time. People seem to be very concerned with that with Scout. Although Atticus doesn't. He kind of lets her do her own thing. I think that's it, Anya. I don't think he wants his kids to be proud of violence or proud of talents like that. And that's actually one of my other favorite lines, which was said right after the shooting on the bottom of my page. Hold on. I'm circling it. People in their right minds never take pride in their own talents. What do you guys think that means? Whitney, I like that. Atticus doesn't want to represent a totally Southern ideal at the time, where violence, especially against other races, was common. He wants to be better than what he once was. I think that's interesting. I think of the way that Numismat is, she describes it was like Atticus knows that life was a gift from God, and he didn't like the one up he had on all these animals and stuff. I think that's true. I think he doesn't like taking away this gift. And maybe that's why he feels that they'd be wrongfully taking away this life of this man. And he feels it's his duty to do something. And that's something I think is super admirable. I know within my family, I think one of the reasons why I love this book is because within my family, integrity is a big thing. What you do when no one's watching, and then what you do when it's hard to do the right thing. Very important in my family. And I think that's something that's interesting about this book. Yeah. That he has a sense of integrity. It's so important. Well, I mean, my Tory mustache coming in again. He doesn't want them to judge him on his ability to use violence with skill. He wants to teach them morals and have a deeper understanding of people and what it means to be a worthwhile person. I think you can see that reflected in the way he speaks to Scout, not wanting her to fight, and Jem, and them wanting to keep their cool. And you know, frankly, I think that's specifically one of the best lessons we can get if we're going to talk about very briefly, if we're going to talk about politics today. What's up, my Dora mustache? See, politics today can get very frustrating, and at times when people talk about these things they care about, they can get very upset and become angry, and they can start becoming it can start to attack you. And I think that's something that Atticus does very well. And one thing he looks for in his children and tries to teach Scout, but it ends up being Jem that loses face. Is not to lose face, to be a gentleman, to understand people have the right to their opinions, and yeah, they might hurt or not agree with you, but don't let that affect you. That's your decision to let yourself get upset. Don't let them, fight with your head, not your hands. He says that to Scout, and I think there's a lot of lessons in the way that Atticus talks to Scout and Jem that I think maybe Harper Lee's trying to talk to us with, like this amazing father figure, Atticus. He's almost like a father to all of us in that sense. Exactly. In law, your reputation, your integrity is everything. Well, because the law is hard, right? But it is the law. Well, I think that whole thing comes from the idea that just to make it clear that both genders had to fulfill specific roles. They expected Scout to be in the kitchen wearing a dress, doing things that didn't require her to need pants, and they expected Francis to be doing things like Jem and running around and being a boy. So there's like that. It happened on both sides there, where Scout's like, I want to wear overalls, and Francis is like, I want to cook. So I think that's super interesting. Oh, thanks, Tim, man. How you been? Sorry, guys. Everyone say hi to my friend Tim. Tim Eason84. Him and I sang together once in Orlando, and he's been a friend ever since. I hope he's doing really well. He's a very great voice. If anyone wants to go check out his Insta and talk to him. Let's talk about that real quick. It is never an insult to be called what somebody thinks is a bad name. It just shows us how poor that person is. I completely agree with that. And I don't like to speak politics, as you guys know, but I'm going to comment on that with one quote from our commander-in-chief when he called Colin Kaepernick a son of a bitch for kneeling on the NFL football field. I think that just shows how poor he really is. He's all his wealth, but he has no mind. What do you think about Atticus' law to help a black man? Why is it in a book? Why only Atticus treat him well and help him? Well, I think that's what the book is about. I mean, this was an event that happened in Harper Lee's hometown around the 1930s, and she decided to write about it and bring out like the way class worked there, the way race worked there. So I feel that, oh God, I lost the question. Well, I think that comes from Atticus's sense of moral integrity. He did not see race. He saw the problem. He saw people are trying to pin something with no evidence on a man who did not commit the crime. With evidence. There's no evidence to say that. So his job as a lawyer is to be like, no, I have to defend this man. I didn't say a bad word. I quoted the president. Let's just talk about that real quick. I didn't say a bad word. I quoted our president. I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to get angry. I want to keep my face. You know? If I keep talking about it, I'm going to become like Jem and just go ruin all of his bushes. Marianne, yeah, it does. It covers a whole lot of topics that no one wanted to talk about, especially at the time. I think that's very important. Remember, in the 1960s, women and men still had their specific gender roles. In the 1960s, there was a lot of pressure on both genders to perform and to behave certain ways. And then when you get into sexuality, if you weren't in the traditional binary of what sexuality meant, then you did not have a very safe lifestyle, like, especially in the South. Well, in terms of race in the South, for sure. Back to the book, exactly. And I think that's super interesting. Zaya, I liked your comment there. She forced a narrative upon people that they were not ready to accept. Isn't that funny that book that we now universally call it one of American classics, taught in American schools, we love it. At the time, people were trying to ban it from being read. I think it goes to say that sometimes forms of protest and sometimes forms of... I mean, this book is perfect for what's happening right now. It's to say that sometimes the things that are right aren't socially accepted by people, but it's still the right thing to do. And that's what Atticus is saying when he's like, yes, I'm going to defend this man. Yeah, it's not socially accepted, but it's still the right thing to do. Who forced the narrative? Harper Lee. She told this story, and people didn't want to hear it. They didn't want to talk about these issues. They didn't want to talk about how people kept putting women in boxes, saying, no, you can only be the mom, and you can only wear a dress. When all these women were being geniuses, being like, no, we are awesome. Why should we do that? They're talking about race, and this inequality in race in the South. And in other parts, as you can see, other parts of our country as well. She was talking about a bunch of different things that people at the time, these were conversations people weren't having. And didn't really start becoming a focus until later in the 60s, when the civil rights movement was in full effect. And then these conversations became more popular, I guess. Let's talk about Calpurnia. Thank you. What do you guys think of her? I personally love her. I love Calpurnia. Lost Bullet, sorry, you're right. And the fact that a woman wrote that book as well. Amazing. Atticus does conform to traditional gender roles, as do most of the people in the book. It's only every once in a while that someone says, but I want to wear overalls. I want to cook. I want to do these things that when you look at them and two kids making fun of each other, why can't a man cook? Why can't a girl wear whatever? It's a whole thing. Scout defies gender norms, yet expect others to conform. I think that comes as... I think that all goes back to that one line again. You never really know what it's like to be another person until you live in their shoes. You live in their skin, walk around in it for a while. I think half of the problems in the United States would be solved if we did that. If we all said, for one day, we can actually imagine that. One day you switch and you're in someone else's body for an entire day. I think it'd be amazing. Yes, let's back to Calpurnia. The way she treats Scout, she totally loves her like a mother. Like a mother. Think about it. The first day they were gone, she missed them, so she made them something special. And Atticus treats her as an equal, which would be unheard of for a black woman in the 30s. See, Veza, you're so right. He does. He treats her, he gives her the same privilege as the child's mother, which is in the way that she can discipline and everything. And I think that's amazing, because you're right, that is. And that's another person. You're right. Kia Lake. She is very smart, and it breaks the mold again. Calpurnia is colored, but she's very smart, even though she even though she taught Scout to write and has respect in the house. Exactly. No, but remember, they comment multiple times, like, Calpurnia knows a lot more. She's allowed to read and write. She taught Scout to write. All these things that they were like, wow, that's pretty cool. Calpurnia is a pretty solid lady. I also just love her, because I feel like when I was younger... Can you not see? I think that's sad, too. Can we talk about that real quick? Can we talk about how, like, I think it's interesting that Jem has this very clear... He remembers his mom, and then Scout doesn't. I don't know why. That just made me sad. When I read that, I was like, oh, that must be weird to have a young... Well, I guess because I really feel... I really relate with Jem. I get him a lot. He's the older brother. I get that. I'm the older brother. So... No, Nikki Papcon, I think she does get her bold personality from Calpurnia. The ability to be like, no, I want to do this. No, because Calpurnia, they're very similar in that way. Yeah, Jem is older. And that's why I feel like I get him, because he remembers his, well, not because of that, but the way he treats Scout. And let's talk about that, too, their relationship. There's a tremendous amount of respect between those siblings, which I love. Like, you could tell that Scout really looks up to her older brother, and she sees him as, like, not a mini Atticus, but someone with whom she really, really puts a lot of faith in. I think Calpurnia is Scout's motherly figure, but I don't know if she sees her that way. I think she fails to see her that way, and I think that might be because of race. I don't know, but I don't know if Scout recognizes Calpurnia's presence in her life. Let me see what you guys say. I agree, Scarlett. They are sibling goals. They're awesome. All right. Miss Selena Kaya, do you think Calpurnia is really mean before the book starts, as Scout says, or Scout feels that way because she is strict like a real mother? I think she's strict like a real mother. But I also think, like, I had really strict aunts and uncles that when I was a kid, they were like, oh, they were so mean. Oh, she was so mean. And now that I'm older, I just totally get that they got annoyed with kids sometimes and had like a shorter fuse. Or we did do more to annoy some of my aunts. So it was right for them to be more mad at me. So I think there's something in the innocence of being of being younger and being a child, that you don't fully understand the motives and the behavior of your adult counterparts until you start to put yourselves in their shoes, or until you start to receive some semblance of responsibility. Just like Scout noticed the change when she started to go to school of Calpurnia being super cool now, because now she had her own responsibility, and Calpurnia can let her do that and didn't have to feel the need to teach them or teach her up until that point. Well, of course she is. Calpurnia's been there her whole life. Scout is totally used to her being there. Exactly, but it's Jessica MacArthur. It's harder to see them when you're younger. Like they said, it takes a few years to look back at the events and be like, oh, now we can talk about them. Get to the part where she's not keeping her native accent because she wants to fit in with society. Well, I think that makes sense. What do you mean by that? Let's, if you can, expand more in the comment. The person who wrote that question. It's all right if you guys are late. Thank you for joining. We have about 20 minutes left. I think something big is coming too. I'm very excited. I know the next few chapters are going to be awesome. Oh, my parents were very strict growing up. My parents, they weren't they weren't strict with like the things that we wanted to do that would benefit us. They were strict with the things that we wanted to do that they knew we were trying to do that were like. let's go play manhunt at our cousin's house. They're like, you know what? You probably shouldn't go do that, run around the streets and stuff. But you could go to the baseball field to play baseball. I don't know. That's not a really accurate thing, but like, I feel like my parents seemed straight because they were just like teaching me right from wrong. And I don't know. I feel like there's something else. I feel like that'll change. Also, I can't wait to like be a parent. Well, I can, but I'm saying like when you become a parent and then you start to realize like all the stuff that you did that you see your kid doing. I'm excited for that. To be like, wow, I did that. Scout's uncle clearly respects her as he listens to her when she tells him that he doesn't know how to interact with children. So he asks Atticus what he's doing wrong. All right, I think there's an interesting thing about Jamie Lee Carter. Remember, up until that point, Scout, admittedly by Atticus, had never been hit before. I mean, not by Atticus's hand. So that's the father figure who she came to love and respect that never laid a hand on her. This other uncle did, and it was technically unfair. Did she deserve it? Yes, because she was warned not to curse, and she still cursed. But that little Francis was a little piece of shit. If I can be completely honest, that little Francis is a little piece of shit. Because then I think he should have manned up and admitted his fault as well. I guess manned up isn't the right word for it, but he should have, been an honest person instead of just letting his cousin take an entire beating for something they both started. But that's also something I think the uncle did wrong. He put it all on one. In any fight, there's always two sides. And especially when it gets physical, I think both sides are wrong. The minute a fight becomes physical, both sides are wrong. I mean, when you go into the greater aspects and make it like war and stuff, that stuff gets dangerous. But if someone has to like hit someone, let me just put this out there, guys. I've never been in a fight in my life. I've never raised a hand to someone, and I'm super proud to say that. Not even Diego. Never hit Diego. Not even once. He's my younger brother. I would never hit him because I knew if I hit him, someone else could. They'd be like, well, his brother does it, so no. Yes, MK, human up. I like that better. But yeah, like, I would totally agree with that. Like, I think that's right. Yes, thank you. Both sides are wrong when it gets physical. Atticus said that the uncle did what was right, but the wrong reason. She should have gotten in trouble for cursing, but not hitting. He said that he was right because he had said, if you don't stop cursing, you're going to get a beating. In less words or so. And that's where he was making that thing true. The problem... Think about it. The other time she referred to him was when he would... was it him or the doctor? She loved that the doctor treated them like an adult and explained what was going to be done and the reason why. Hey, you have a splinter. I'm going to pluck it out with these two things and it's going to hurt like this. And then they do it. So she didn't like that the uncle kind of didn't do that with her. And she was like, whoa, I should be respected. Atticus respects me as such. You should respect me as well. Especially because Francis is a little shit. I can't get over it. Francis is one of my least favorite characters right now. Pass the damn ham. Yeah, who would say that? Pass the damn ham. On page 6, Scout talks about how Maycomb had recently been told it had nothing to fear but fear itself. But this wasn't really explained. Do you think it'll come to play later in the book? I think that has to do with the time, and I'll tell you why. Give me one sec. Yes. Can I tell you why? So the reason why that was important was because of the time. In Franklin D. Roosevelt's first inaugural address in 1932, which is when the book is set, he says, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. So when she says Maycomb had just been told that, she means the new president had just been in, and boom. Exactly. It's a quote from the president, Sidney Brooks. Exactly that. Oh, IDK, just thank you for joining in. I'm glad you go to sleep. Sleep well. Thank you for coming. So yes, that's exactly what that is. No, yes, Magnus. enthusiast, Harper Lee is too woke. Think about this. She wrote this in 1960. Like, what? And then she didn't write another book for like 50 years. That blew my mind when I was reading that. I was like, she didn't write Go Set a Watchman in what, 2014? 2015. She waited so long to write again. I something I would have wanted to ask her. I bet there are interviews about it. I haven't read it. If I had to say my two favorite characters, my three, you know what? The whole Finch family is my favorite character. Them against the rest of Maycomb is essentially what I feel this is coming to, right? Like, this seems like it's starting to build where it's going to be them three against the rest of the town, which Atticus starts to warn them of earlier on, and then the event happens where little shit Francis starts calling Atticus terrible names, and Scout stands up for her father, and then it happens again later in the book. I feel like it's going to be the three of them against the rest, and they're going to have to follow Atticus's amazingly set example as to how to behave. I see a lot of my father in Atticus, which I think is kind of a super cool compliment. My dad's always like that. He's very good at explaining things. He's very good at being a listener. My dad's a general, so I guess that's why he has that leadership qualities. I don't know. I want to be like that, like Atticus, like my dad. They're super cool. Got her coins and chilled for 50 years. Goals. Not really, though. I kind of want to work a lot. Thoughts on the lady who Jem had to read books to? Other than I think she's just like a crazy... To me, based on how old she's supposed to be and how Atticus treats her like a gentleman and always waving and complimenting her, she seems like that crazy old lady on the street today that you're like, yeah, she's the racist lady down the street. Don't really talk to her. That's what she sounds like to me. Like, if you walk down New York, there are some crazy people on the streets that'll be yelling some of them. God, I keep getting like little hairs in my mouth. It's because the last time I wore this sweater, I was holding Stella, so I think there's still Stella hair all over this. Let's talk about that. What's your opinion to Miss Maudie's house being burnt down? Thank you, Triforce of Dragons. I love that name. I think Jem set off on her because... Well, let me do that. I think Jem set off on her because at that point it was like, when had we seen Jem get mad? We hadn't. Until that point. He'd taken all of it. And finally he's like, you know what? No. And I think that was it. It was the straw that breaks the camel's back. And I think that's to show that even like the strongest can break. But he was still young. I wonder what Atticus's breaking point's going to be. That's what that made me think. I was like, oh, if Jem could snap, can Atticus snap too? That's what made me question that. I was like, huh. Maybe that's to show, because as of this point, Jem had no, like, not character flaws, but nothing that I was like, oh, cool. That was the first time I was like, oh, all right. But I love the idea of being a gentleman. There's an idea, I want to say Japanese culture, where it's like you don't lose face, ever. You don't let anyone let you lose face. And I think that's what Atticus is trying to teach. And my dad has taught me that. I'm the emotional one in the family, so I'm not very good at that. I have to work on not losing face when someone upsets me. Diego's very good at it as well. Diego's a lot like Jem, I think. When Diego starts to respect to someone, I start to respect someone. Because if you get Diego's respect, it means you earned it. Diego's stoicism. Is that really what it's called? Stoicism? That just sounds so bad. Not bad, it just doesn't sound good. Stoicism, stoic. I don't know. Why do you think Jem got upset over the tree hole being filled with cement? Why do you guys think Jem got upset with the tree hole being filled with cement? I want to see your answers. I'll read them out loud. Yeah, sorry, the air conditioning just turned on, so I don't know if you guys can hear that, but it's like a bong, 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 bong. What's the mystery? Well, I think Boo Radley was sneaking out at night to give them stuff, and I think Mr. Radley didn't like Boo Radley sneaking out at night, so he filled that hole to stop Boo Radley from doing that. I think Jem felt a sense of friendship with this person, whoever he thought was giving them this. I think he knew it was Boo Radley, too. I think he's like, I know it was him. And he closed the hole. It's just not fair. I'm never going to figure it out. I think it was one of those things, too. Yeah. That's it. It was, but also he was getting cool stuff. Think about it. The kids are getting gum and these cool pocket knives and the tree was like a revolution. That's interesting. It was like the only way they could live in that gray area that Atticus was like, don't go near that house, don't bother them. They're like, well, the tree's not really there and I can get information from this tree. That's so true. It was like a revolution. And he was so close. Boo's artwork. That's cool to say. Break from routine and gifts. I'd miss that shit too. That's awesome. I think that's a big thing. Kids are supposed to push boundaries, I think. Think about it. Every generation has tried to push the boundaries for the generation before it. Could Boo be the Mockingbird? No, maybe. That's not what I think, though. I think the Mockingbird, I think it's... I don't know yet. I don't really know. So I'm not going to say it. I'm gonna keep thinking about it. I don't want you guys thinking my ideas are, like, right or anything, because they're not. They're just ideas. That's something everyone knows, right? All the ideas that I have about books and stuff and about our books so far, they're all just ideas. They're not right. Like 100%. Remember, it's a sin to kill a mockingbird. That was the only time I ever heard Atticus say it was a sin to do something. Why do you think Atticus never said anything was a sin until killing a mockingbird? We're going to end on that question. Sid 204, I think I agree with you. And I agree with you. Boo and Tim, I think, are both representing that in different ways. Totally agree. Exactly, it's just fun to talk about it. There's nothing right or wrong. That's why I love art in general. In art, there is no right or wrong. Don't let anyone tell you you're wrong about something. You know? That's what I hated about art class in, like, high school. I mean, middle school, I mean. When I was in middle school, I didn't like painting or anything, because in art class, I was always wrong. I was never a good painter. I'm not a good painter. I'm a great artist, not a good painter. I have other forms of art I'm better at, you know? So never let anyone tell you you're a bad artist. Because it's not true. If you're a human, you're an artist. You have the power to create, right? Art is art if you think it's art. Totes. Can I talk louder? Yes, I can. Unfortunately, Instagram has now started winding down the clock. I have 25 seconds, 24, 23. So I only have 20 seconds left. So let's talk about the next bit. I'm sorry, guys. The next bit we have up to chapter 20.